In this video, I'm going to show you a few ways you can use your TI-30XS Multiview calculator for the Unit 2 homework. So these are actual problems from your Unit 2 homework. So this one says simplifying opposites. Okay, so let's look at, again, well, I like to look at the most creepy looking one. So how about this one? Okay, we can punch this in exactly as we see it. Okay, make sure to note, now that we're dealing with negative numbers, okay, if it's a negative or an opposite, so this is the opposite of negative 5, we need to use this button right here. We only use subtraction when we're subtracting two numbers. So if there was a 5 in front of this, we would be finding 5 minus the opposite of negative 5. Okay, so if you ever see in syntax error, you probably used one of the wrong buttons. So I'm going to do the opposite of negative 5. Okay, now I close the parentheses and notice there's another 2 that closes this and that closes this. Okay, I hit enter and the result is negative 5. Okay, let's look at the next one. Here we have adding and subtracting integers. So let's clear this. Again, the keys I'm entering are right up here for your reference. You can always pause the video. How about we try negative 30 plus negative 90? Okay, you can put in the parentheses, negative 30 plus negative 90. Hit enter, and our result is negative 120. Okay, now let's try a subtraction problem. How about negative 7 minus negative 4. Okay, so negative 7 minus, okay, so notice this one is subtraction. These are signs of the numbers. Okay, so parentheses and then negative 4. Again, notice how the negative is a little bit shorter and higher than subtraction. And our result is negative 3. Let's look at the next slide. Okay, here if we want to add or subtract a lot of integers, let's start with this one. Okay, and I've been putting in all the parentheses. The parentheses are nice because they help you distinguish between a negative sign and a subtraction. So notice they look the same in Math AS, but let's do one where we don't use the parentheses. If it's just around a single number, you actually don't need it. It just looks nicer. So the one on the right, we have negative 2 plus 7 minus negative 9, so minus negative 9 plus 2. Okay, so notice this does still look a little bit nicer than this, but you have your main operations, you have the negative signs, and you can double check your work. Minus negative 9 plus 2, hit enter, and the result is 16. Let's look at the next slide. Multiplying integers. Okay, so how about we do negative 3 times 9? Let's clear everything. So negative 3 times 9, and our result is negative 27. Okay, here we have division in two forms, using a division symbol or using a fraction symbol. Okay, so let's try 54 divided by negative 6. Okay, again, you could put the negative in parentheses or not. Oop, make sure you close them though. And our result is negative 9. Okay, now let's look at this one. Okay, and it's in fraction form, but this is just a different way of writing division. So if you want, you could write it as 21 divided by negative 7. Or you can put it in fraction form by hitting the fraction button. We'd have 21 in the numerator. Use the arrow to go to the bottom. Negative 7 in the denominator. And then hit enter. And notice we get the same result. Okay, so two ways to use division. Let's look at the next one. integers and exponents. We are going to do all of these, okay, because I want you to see the difference. So we learned in this lesson, so first let's do negative 3 squared, okay. Now this result is going to be negative. We could also think of this as the opposite of 3 squared, even though I said negative, okay. Notice this is not being squared in this case because it's not in parentheses. But in the next one, when the negative 5 is in parentheses and I square it, the result is positive. Okay, so here's the thing, you have to punch them in correctly in order to get the correct answer. Okay, so if there's parentheses here, it's very important with the exponents. That's why better safe than sorry. You can just keep the parentheses there if you see them in the problem. And this one is the opposite of negative 6 squared. Okay, these are not going to cancel in this case because the exponent goes first, but the calculator will tell us that. So the opposite of negative 6, close parentheses, squared. Notice our result is negative. Okay, and let's clear this for the last one. Now we have negative 1 to the 35th power. Okay, so parentheses, negative 1. Remember, there's no 35th power button, but you can hit the caret. It brings you up to the exponent. I'm going to enter 35. Then I'm going to use the right arrow to leave the exponent and hit enter. And notice the result is negative 1. Okay. On this last slide, we're going to look at some order of operations when we have exponents. How about we do... let's do this first one. Actually, let's do the first one in the second row. Okay, so parentheses, the negative 9 goes in parentheses. I'm going to square it. Subtraction, minus 3 parentheses, then we have a negative 9. Close the parentheses, plus 8. Now I'm going to refer back to our work, make sure it's correct. Hit enter, and we get a result of 116. So I hope these help you learn how to use your calculator on your homework.